You know, there's a saying that happiness doesn't just come by what we have. It actually comes by how we act, by what we do. And that is what this chapter is going to be about, this video. It's going to be about acting in a certain way, so you can dramatically improve your life, like I always like to say. But this is the goal of this whole channel, is to help humanity find the truth of their powers, so that they can apply it once and for all. And Wallace Wattles is going to help us do exactly that. It's so vitally important that we grasp what it means to be acting in a certain way. Because there's many people on this planet, including myself, I'm imagining you, and friends, family of yours, of mine. Everybody is struggling with something. And we can all overcome these struggles if we learn to imagine beyond the obstacles that we're facing. If we can actually imagine the solution to our problems, then we have a pattern according to which we can act in this physical world. That is a very interesting thing that not many people grasp, but it's something you can learn, and hopefully you will over time, and then apply it in your life. And also always remember, it's a ongoing process. It's not going to be like one day you grasp it entirely and you'll be fine. In fact, this world keeps pressing itself upon us with all sorts of contradicting ideas, and that is when we lose our ways. That is when we stop acting in a certain way, meaning according to what we really want, what we really desire to have. Now, Wallace Wattles talked about this in his book in a chapter called Acting in a Certain Way. But before we get into that, I wanted to just kind of briefly touch on this a little deeper. It's that in my life I've known people that were very depressed. Now, depression can be a result of things going on in the brain on a physical level. It's very true. Many people struggle with something physically. However, for others, and I guess a great majority, it's more of a mental thing in the end. Because I honestly believe that no matter what you're going through, you can actually improve it if you understand how to work with your own mind. Now, I've known people who actually took their own lives. Now, why did they do it? They didn't just do it out of nowhere. I think what happens for most people, again, is that all the negativity of this world impresses itself upon them. And because they have not been taught or shown the way on how they can outgrow all these obstacles that they're facing, well, then things get very dark and sad. So my heart always goes out to those people that are struggling currently in ways that feels like their future looks like gloomy, like dark, and all that negative stuff where you basically have no hope for a future. But I want you to have hope for your future. I don't want you to give up. I hope you understand that. Because there is hope. And you can find that hope for yourself. You can create renewed hope for yourself if you learn to act in a certain way. Now, in my previous video, we talked about thinking in a certain way. This one ties in a very important manner. Now, let's put the picture back on the screen. And at this time, if you look at the left corner of the screen, the top left corner, I put another word there. In the previous video, it only said mental faculties, thinking and imagination, but now I also added willpower. In fact, Wallace Wattles talked about willpower, but what we're getting at here is the fact that you can only act in a certain way if you're focused on where you want to go. And in order to do that, you need to develop your willpower, your ability to concentrate. So that is kind of the only thing you really have to grasp concerning this chapter in reality. There's quite a bit of text here, but ultimately what it all boils down to is if you can hold the vision of what you want, well, then all the ideas, the inspiration you need will come to you. Now, in order to hold that picture of where you really want to go with your life, well, you're going to have to develop your willpower. Now, how do you do that? It's very simple. It's very simple, really. You just need to know what you want. Before you know what you want, you can't really be acting in a certain way. Now, this is what happened to me the very first time I read this chapter 11 years ago. Again, I thought like, okay, so how does acting in a certain way help me to get what I want? Well, I didn't realize back then that most people probably read a book like this, like a novel. They go through it and then they might memorize certain elements, but they don't really study it, like a scientist almost, I could say. So let's get into the chapter. First of all, I put a little of my own text on there, a little paragraph of inspiration. I wrote, after imagining the goals, act on it also. So in this case, after imagining your goals, after you are imagining the goals that you want to achieve, well, you should also act on them. You want to turn those powerful thoughts and ideas into powerful action and results. That's literally the process. It's really that simple. However, it might take a little bit of study and reminding yourself before you really grasp it. Now let's go over the text that Wallace wrote at the very beginning. He said, "Thought is the creative power, or the impelling force which causes the creative power to act. Thinking in a certain way will bring riches to you, but you must not rely upon thought alone, paying no attention to personal action. That is the rock upon which many otherwise scientific metaphysical thinkers meet shipwreck. The failure to connect thought with personal action." Now, I want you to really think about that part. The failure to connect thought with personal action. This is something I catch myself doing all the time, and I know it's something you're doing. Actually, every human being is doing this. We all know how to do better. It doesn't mean that we're doing better, though. Really think about it. You know how to improve your life. If you apply the ideas that I share through my videos, you will figure out how to improve your life. It doesn't mean that your life will improve. Why? Because he said it's a failure to connect our thoughts with personal action, meaning if we think about how we can improve our lives, we have to learn to act according to the thought. Really burn it into your mind, because if you do that, well, that's when stuff starts to change. I can promise you that much. Now, a little later on in the chapter, he pointed it out like this: you must not only think, but your personal action must supplement your thought. After that line, I took a pencil and I wrote, we gotta express thought through action. It's another way of saying the same thing. Again, if you know what to think about concerning your goals, when you're thinking about your goals, of what you really want, the sort of results that you really want for your life, well, then you have to express the thought. So you learn to act according to the thoughts that you create within your mind. That is essentially what acting in a certain way is. That's why I told you it's not that we have to get really deep into this chapter specifically, but there are a few lines here, paragraphs, that I thought I would just share with you. Another one is, the scientific use of thought consists in forming a clear and distinct mental image of what you want, and holding fast to the purpose to get what you want, and in realizing with grateful faith that you do get what you want. This is so powerful. Are you applying this towards your own goals? Well, I'm trying my best to apply it towards my own goals, but of course, sometimes we have bad days, and then we might not feel as grateful. We might not be full of gratitude and faith. But we always want to remember, we have to get back to that state of mind. It's the only way to improve your life. It is the only way. In fact, I wrote an interesting quote that I thought I wanted to share with you. And I once heard it. I don't remember exactly who said it, but it went something like, to have the things you've never had before, you must do the things you've never done before. Well, that is how your dreams become a reality. That is what it means to be acting in a certain way. I'll say it again. To have the things you've never had before, you must do the things you've never done before. Now, I know most people, they can have goals that they want to travel around through the world. They have career goals, again, relationship goals. It's for everybody, it's the same. We all are looking for happiness in our own ways, but it's very similar in the goals that we set. Now, why is that some people achieve them and the great majority seems to be struggling all the time? Well, if we could actually look into the minds of every individual out there, we're going to discover that the so-called successful people are acting in a certain way. And they are focused mentally within consciousness on where they actually want to go in spite of what the current reality is telling them. So if circumstances are contradicting, if they're not to your liking, well, you should learn to not look at them at all. Now that might not make no sense at first. It's like if you would look into your bank account, you want to be rich, and you look into your bank account right now, and you don't see that you're rich. You're like, well, this is not the amount of money that I want. Well, what would a successful person do who is currently rich? Well, before they got rich, I can guarantee you many started to imagining, either consciously or subconsciously, they started to imagine wealth in the bank account of theirs. No joke. Really, if you study my previous videos, you'll understand I'm not joking with you here. It might sound like science fiction, but this is really important. This is also what Wallace said a little further on in the chapter. He said, this is the crucial point in the science of getting rich. Right here, where thought, your thoughts and personal action must be combined. There are very many people who consciously or unconsciously set the creative forces in action by the strength and persistence of their desires, but who remain poor because they do not provide for the reception of the thing they want when it comes. By thought, the thing you want is brought to you. By action, you receive it. By thought, the thing you want is brought to you. By action, you receive it. Now, if you go back just a little bit, he said, many people stay poor because they do not provide for the reception of the thing they want when it comes. Do you know what that means? Well, it took me a long time to really try to figure out for myself what that actually means. But what I discovered for myself is that basically what you want to do, again, is organize your life in such a way that you can actually receive the good that you desire. So if you want to have a great relationship, well, you're going to have to change yourself into a person that is lovable, likable, that could have a great relationship. You don't want to be pessimistic about your love life, and many people are. If they don't have the right partner, they're pessimistic. Well, that's not creating space to receive the good that you desire. It's the same with wealth. Well, how are you going to get wealthy? Well, you decide on how you're going to get wealthy simply by deciding on what sort of service you want to provide to humanity through which wealth can flow to you. You see what's happening here? That is, again, acting in a certain way. You can do the same with a career goal. You look at any goal or career goal that you want for yourself, you're like, that would be a great career for me. That is what I'm doing with YouTube right now. I'm just simply thinking to myself, it would be awesome to make this content for people to watch. Hopefully it helps them, that's the goal. Okay, I have it in my thoughts. Well, now I have to provide, space so I can receive viewers. If you're watching this, so I can receive you as a person that's viewing it, right? Because if I didn't create the videos, well, there would be nothing for you to watch on my channel or in general of me as a person. So that's what he's warning about. That people do not provide for the reception of the thing they want when it comes. You see what I'm getting at here? I hope that gives you some ideas for yourself when you're looking at your own goals. Are you providing space to receive the good that you actually desire? Are you contradicting yourself, or are you actually in harmony with the good that you have created in your consciousness? Because that's what you had to do when he talked about thinking in a certain way. Now, another beautiful thing Wallace wrote was, do not wait for a change of environment before you act. Get a change of environment by action. You can so act upon the environment in which you are now as to cause yourself to be transferred, to grow to a better environment. This makes so much sense. It's so obvious, yet many times we're not even, thinking about any of this. When you read it, you're like, but that makes so much sense. I want a better life for myself. Well, why am I not creating a better life for myself? It's up to me. I'm the one that's controlling this body. That means I'm the one that's in control of my actions, and my actions always control the results that I'm getting. So if I want to create a better life for myself, I have to start right where I'm at. Well, that's essentially what I'm doing with this channel as well. I can imagine videos being in a certain way. Perhaps I could imagine them at a much greater presentation level, where I might need a film crew. Well, currently in my physical reality, I don't have a film crew available. But what I do have available is a camera. a camera to which I can talk. So basically, I'm not waiting for a change of environment before I'm acting. I'm getting a change of environment by taking action right now. And you can do the same with your goals, but you just got to be very clear on having that mental picture, that vision, that idea, that dream, that thought in your mind, first and foremost. Now at the end of this chapter, there's 2 paragraphs. They're kind of very similar, but they're so important that I wanted to share them with you right now. Wallace wrote, hold to that vision of yourself in the right business. Hold to the vision of where you want to go, with the purpose to get into that business, with the purpose that you will get there, and the faith that you will get there or get into that business. But act in your present business. Use your present business as the means of getting a better one, and use your present environment as the means of getting into a better one. Your vision again. You see, that's one key element about all of this material of his. Your vision of the right business, if held with faith and purpose, will cause the Supreme to move the right business toward you, and your action, if performed in a certain way, will cause you to move toward the business. This is very, very important again, because I'm sure you know people who talk about improving their lives, but nothing is improving. Why? Well, in reality, it's because of what he just explained. If you're not performing the actions you need to take in a certain way, then your life may not improve. It might not improve in reality. Now, what is acting in a certain way? I'll remind it again very easily. It means you act, your physical actions are based on a vision that you first created in your consciousness. So with me and this YouTube channel, I first had to build a clear idea of what sort of videos am I going to make. What will the vlogs or the presentations look like? How will I edit them? What music will I be using? Stuff like that, all these tiny little details. Once I got that clear in my mind, I can now start acting on those ideas. And something else happens as I hold the vision of the sort of content that I want to make in my life. Well, this is what he means. The Supreme Power will move it toward me. It will move it toward you. This simply means all the inspired ideas, all the thoughts, everything you need will flow literally into your mind. You will become inspired. I've talked about this before. He's saying essentially the same thing. You will become inspired with new ideas on which you can act in order to improve your life. But first, always make sure you have the vision. Now the final paragraph of this chapter, again, it's very similar as the previous one, but he said it again. Your vision and faith will set the creative motion to bring it towards you, and your action will cause the forces in your own environment to move you toward the place you want. You see, that is essentially the 2 most important things you want to get out of this book as a starter. First of all, you want to learn to think about what you want. It might not sound obvious, but most people, they really don't think about what they want. In fact, for most people it's difficult. Did you know that? It might be difficult for you when you're waking up in the morning to instantly think about what you want and where you're going. With most people, what happens is they can think about it for a little bit, but they're so trained to think about all the negatives, about everything that's wrong, that they're not thinking in the certain way that we're talking about in this book. Because when we're talking about thinking in a certain way and acting in a certain way, we're talking about building beautiful visions in your consciousness of where you really would like to go, and then do everything that you can in order to get there. As you hold that vision in your mind, the ideas in order to get there will come to you. It's the same with me and this channel again. As I hold the vision, the ideas of what sort of videos I want to make are coming towards me because I got the basic foundation clear within my own imagination. Having the basic idea clear, now that's what you want to get after. Once you have it, acting in a certain way happens automatically, to be really honest. When I was a teenager, at one point I wanted to be a movie director. Now, I didn't know any of this material at that time. What I did unconsciously was I built a vision of the sort of films I wanted to make. And again, all the inspiration, ideas on what I want, for example, the movie to be about came to me. But not only that, all sorts of people were drawn to me in order to help me, or at least try at the time, try to help me to make it happen. And because I didn't know this information, when times got tough, I'm almost ashamed to say this, I gave up. Because I thought, well, it's probably impossible. But it was just tough times that we all have at times. If I understood thinking in a certain way, I would have known, you know what, these obstacles, they don't matter. I just got to keep focused on my vision, because then the ideas on how I can outgrow the obstacles I'm facing will come to me, and then I can act on these new ideas and still improve my life, or get what I want, create the movie, whatever it is in your case. Now, this is where most people mess up. You can clearly tell. You can clearly see, if you're honest with yourself, that there's so many areas in your life. Some of them you're good, in others you're bad. I have areas in my life where I'm pretty good at this, and in other areas I might screw up. I might screw up badly, to be really honest. Now, I know it's the same for you, but don't beat yourself up for that. Simply start to understand that no matter what area you're struggling in, first apply the idea of thinking in a certain way. Get that clear mental picture of the improvement in that area, of how you would like it to be. And then learn to act according to that mental vision in your mind. And then everything will improve. And I honestly believe most people are stuck, sad, lonely, depressed, whatever it is. They can at least dramatically improve their lives if they learn about these ideas. Now, perhaps it might not get rid of their depression or any other mental health issue entirely. I'm well aware of that. But what it can do is give them renewed hope that there is a possibility for them, and that there is a power in them that can help them improve everything that they want, so they can finally live a better, more joyful, fulfilled life. That's what it's all about. So that's basically all I have to say concerning this chapter, because there's not really a lot to say about it. If you have the clear idea of where you want to go, well, act in a certain way. The only thing that might happen to people at times is that they run into something called their comfort zone. Sometimes your dreams might ask you to do stuff that you've never done before, but it's like that quote that I shared before. To have the things you've never had before, you must do the things you've never done before. And this might be scary and uncomfortable at first. But if you understand that you're working with your own powerful imagination, with your own mind, if you clearly understand, if you can see it in your mind, you can create it in your life, well then, even if it might be uncomfortable, at least you can be excited, because you know you're working with a power that is for you and not against you at all. And that is how you start living and acting in a certain way. And that's what you deserve, a beautiful, fulfilled life. And I hope you take it to heart. I hope you study these ideas, or ideas similar like this. Start to apply them, work with them. Even if you're not perfect at first, keep working at them. We're never going to be perfect where we never make errors. Simply learn to apply it in your life so that you can live a great, or at least a better life than you're currently living. If you're now stuck, this is how you can get out of being stuck. You imagine yourself beyond the obstacles. You imagine yourself where you want to go. And then as you hold that vision, as he said, in acting in a certain way, if you hold that vision, the ideas will come to you so that you can make it happen. You just got to learn to trust in the process and become familiar with it. If you're not familiar with it, at first it sounds absurd, but I have literal proof that this works. In fact, concerning that movie project, something very strange happened at that time in my life. I felt like I needed to go to a certain place. Again, I held a vision. I wanted to make a movie, so the ideas came out of nowhere, pretty much. I felt like I had to go to a certain place, and as I went there, I didn't know exactly where it was. Then a person passed me by on the street, and I asked them, "Do you know this place?" And they say, "Yeah, it's over there." So then I was like, "Okay, thank you," and I wanted to walk on. And then he said, "But wait a minute, why do you want to know?" And I said, "Well, I'm working on this movie project, and I figured maybe I can use like parts of the building." He said, "Oh, that's interesting, because I work there, so I can walk with you back to the building." Now, I had my father and sister there. They could actually testify that this happened. Now, this is a very, you could say this is a coincidence, but what actually happened again, and it's in this information as well, is that I held the vision so strongly of where I wanted to go with my life that all sorts of bizarre things started to fall into place, helping me to get where I wanted to go at the time in my life. And it's the same for you. But you should stop questioning it and just start applying it and start believing in the process. And then it will work. Don't just analyze or overthink everything, just apply the ideas. So there you have it. Acting in a certain way. It's not as mysterious as it might seem at first. Again, when people read this book for the first time, or maybe if they haven't studied it long enough, they might still be confused, like, how am I supposed to act? What am I supposed to do? Well, again, remember, you first start with thinking in a certain way. You first have to get it in your consciousness before you can properly act on anything. Now, if you go over this material again, and you start to really analyze your life, and you're like, do I have a clear idea in my mind of where I'm actually going? Because as long as that's vague, your actions are going to be all over the place. But once you're very clear on where you want to go, it becomes a motivating factor. It becomes like direction for your life. That's the goal of acting in a certain way. Your vision should become a compass that will guide your physical actions from now on. This works. It works for me, it works for others. So why not for you? It can work for you, I promise you that much. Anyways, with that being said, thanks for watching this video. And always remember that we are the dreamers.